If you try to bring a gun through a checkpoint and you get caught, what happens to that person?
Depends on the state that you're in and the airport that you are, but it's turned over to local law enforcement.
But do they go on a database that you administer? Do you note that person in your database?
We do note that individual's name, yes.
Do they go on a no-fly list?
They do not necessarily go on a no-fly list. It depends upon the nature of how they presented. The no-fly list, as you know, is a terrorist watch list,
right?
And it's managed primarily by the FBI. So the no-fly list is you specifically put on based upon your connection as a known or suspected terrorist. So
trying to bring a gun onto an airplane is not put you into a category as potentially a nefarious terrorist type of person, correct?
It will ensure that you get increased scrutiny when you travel, and you'll lose, if you're a pre-check member or an expedited screening member, you'll lose that.
For how long?
For a minimum of 90 days. It depends upon the nature of the incident.
So you try to bring a gun on a plane, whether it's an accident or not, and just for 90 days you just don't get pre-check. That's the penalty?
You'll get significant additional screening, which will include.
But you can go at day 91, you get back into pre-screen. I saw somebody who is pretty well known in Utah. They were found to have a gun. Said it was an accident. I'm sure it was, but I also saw that person back in pre-check pretty quick, and you know, life goes on. But if you're on the no-fly list, does that mean you can't fly?
Unless they're given a specific waiver request that comes from the FBI, yes, sir, that's correct.
So if you're on the no-fly, how many people on the no-fly list?
I'd have to get you that number. I don't know off the top of my head.
What percentage of the TSA's time is spent on aviation, and where are the other areas in which you're allocating resources?
The vast majority of our effort is spent on the aviation security system because it's the federal responsibility. So if you're just looking at allocation of resources, you've got a large personnel component of that, which takes a great deal of that. So it's over 90% of our resources are on the aviation.
Well, what other things is the TSA spending their time on?
We have a responsibility across all surface modes of transportation, so passenger and light rail, over-the-road motor carriers and buses, pipelines, and maritime. But maritime we do in conjunction with the U.S. Coast Guard.
Tell me a little bit more, if you could. I want to go to Director Grover. There are some things that have been on this list that you've been concerned about for year after year after year. And I really did like, as Mr. Cummings did, how do you solve that cultural problem? But does anybody have any consequence if they fail in this mission? I mean, are they holding people accountable?
We have a study underway on that issue right now. There are annual exams that the screeners have to pass in order to keep their jobs. Beyond that, there are requirements for retraining if there are errors.
What about, and maybe the Inspector General, the Director, can ask, the behavioral profiling part of this, the SPOT part of the program. Can you comment on this real quick on how well that's being implemented?
Sure. Well, this is about $200 million a year, and it is for behavioral detection activities, and the premise is that the officers will be able to spot individuals who pose a threat to aviation security. TSA doesn't have evidence that is sufficient for GAO, so we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Inspector General, have you looked at this at all?
We looked at this in May of 2013. What we found is that there were no metrics that TSA had provided as far as what success looks like in the program. They had very poor data collection. They had insufficient training of the BDOs. I mean, keep in mind what the whole idea behind this is that you're going to be able to take this population and figure out who it is that's the greatest risk.
Now, are they putting too many, sorry, I'm jumping because my time's run out. Are they putting too many people into the TSA pre-lines?
That was our concern, and based on several sort of audits that we did in the spring of this year, we believe that the administrator has taken fairly significant and drastic action to reduce the number of individuals in the pre-check who had not been individually vetted. We made a number of recommendations. The prior administrator had rejected those recommendations, but since Administrator Neffinger has come in, there has been a change as to whether or not those recommendations are adopted.
And this is, again, my concern here is that behavioral profiling is an important part of what we're doing, but how to train and implement that is a critical component. I'm also a big fan of the K-9 teams. They're mobile. There's a perception that they are able to detect things that I think would make somebody very nervous. The presence of a K-9 in conjunction with behavioral profiling, going through a metal detector, would be much more effective and efficient. It's certainly what the military came to the conclusion of doing, and I think we need to pay keen attention to that. But my time has expired.